Hi, Allison. How you doing? Okay. Just taking a look at your writing here. Let's jump right into your file here. Okay, Allison. The first thing I'm noticing here is I don't see your baseline, your mean line, and your cap line, and that is going to be make things really super difficult. Now, after reading this week's materials, and a lot of students have contacted me and said this is a little confusing. Confusing. Can you describe this? So, if you have noticed this, then you're onto something. If you haven't, then pay attention to this moving forward because this is of relevant importance. Okay, so the instructions say draw your baseline, your mean line, and your cap line first, right? The problem with that, and you should be answering this is not a rhetorical question. You should be answering this in your head. Okay, think about it. What is the problem with drawing the baseline, the mean line, and the cap line first? If you're saying to yourself, well, you can draw the baseline, but you can't really draw the mean line or the cap line until you get a letter or two in place because the mean line and the cap line are all strictly dependent on the specific typeface you're using. They're not universal. So you can't just draw a baseline, a mean line, and a cap line. A mean line does not mean the middle, the line in the middle of the baseline and the cap line. That's not a mean line. A mean line theoretically is the line that connects the tops of the letters of lowercase letters. Okay, so if you picked up on that, bravo. If you didn't, that's cool. Think about it moving forward. And in your next, your final submission for this assignment, what I would do is first draw the baseline. Okay, make sure it's if you have a t-square, that's great, and just draw your baseline. Make sure that's a perfectly level line. Then place your B, trace your B on that line, and establish your cap line. Make sure that cap line is perfectly parallel with the baseline. At that point, you can place or trace a lowercase a. All right, get your measurement for your mean line and draw that, making sure again that the distance between the mean line and the cap line is perfectly parallel, and then the distance between the cap line and the mean line and the baseline is also perfect. So the cap line, the mean line, and the baseline should all be equidistant with zero fluctuations. Okay, once you get that measurement down, the rest will be much easier than trying to freehand. But although you still are freehanding, you do have some guides. So I would recommend that moving forward. As far as your letter forms go, I think that your hard lines are good. They're really good. You're showing this variable stroke here, the variable width stroke. You're showing the bowl on the top of the cap B as being a little larger than the bottom. We can see that is clearly the case, right? The negative space of the bowl associated with the lowercase a looks really accurate. You've got that little bend at the foot of the lowercase a. That's fantastic. Your ends look good. Your letter forms look good. Good job. The tonality is not quite there. I would recommend using a softer lead in your pencil so we can get a little darker contrast, so we can really, really see the nuances of the optical relationships associated with Franklin Gothic. So try that. And also, I'm going to talk about letter spacing now, or kerning, and why it's important. Kerning is important because it allows us to view words as just that, as words. Okay, if they're misspaced, so in other words, let's say there's a big space between the N and the A, it breaks the cycle down. So in other words, we're reading, all of a sudden we get this unusual large space between the N and the A in banana. That breaks down. That expeditious flow of letters and words breaks down because our brain all of a sudden goes, okay, there's a break. All of a sudden, the brain is not going to see the word banana as a word, but it's going to see it as a series of letters. In that particular instance, it would see B-A-N-A-N-A, okay? Because that unusual space would be, as I mentioned, between the N and the A. So we don't want to do that. We want to preserve optical readability and legibility throughout our sentences, our words, our letters, I should say between our letters, our words, our sentences, and our paragraphs. And this will enhance the readability associated with our typeset. In this word, and keep this in mind again, moving to your final, the widest space should be between two straight letter forms. Then the next widest should be between a straight and a curve, and the narrowest space should be between two curves. The reason for this is because this indicates there's more volume. Forget that open counter right there. Let's just draw a line right there and say, look at this negative space, right? So if we're going to fill that up with water till we get to the mean line, that space right there seems like it's going to take a lot more water than this space right there. What we want to do is we want to make it look like they take up the even amount, all right? So what theoretically that means is that the two curved letter forms would be closest, then the curved and the straight, then the two curves would be the wide. I'm sorry. The closest, tightest kerning would be between two curved letter forms. The next closest would be between a straight and a curved, and then the widest kerning would be between two straights, okay? So in this particular case, the narrowest should be between the B and the A, all right? Then a little wider than that is between the N and the A, and then the widest should be between the A and the N. And then you can just repeat that through here as those letters repeat, right? So, and that's covered in the course lecture, so you'll be able to review that as you're perusing through the course lecture. So that should be reviewed, right? But other than that, I think you're looking good. So coming out of this, we're looking at a couple of things. We're looking at why do we kern? What is the reasoning for kerning? What are some of the little tricks for kerning? What are things to look for? What are some general rules, like that thing I said about volume and filling up with water? And how can we make this appear to be one word as opposed to a series of letters to enhance legibility and readability? The kerning game is great. So if you want to take the kerning game, just go right over here to the URL. I typically introduce this in week 2, but might as well introduce it a little bit early. It's type.method.ac. It's a weird URL, so I usually just Google the kerning game, and this will come up. And then this shows you, it gives you different words that you can practice your kerning. You can use the arrow, or you can use your arrow keys, or you can use your mouse. And once you get those, and remember what I said, once you get those where you think they look good or where they should be, you'll go ahead and compare. And you can see mine is 83 out of 100, which isn't that good. My Y was too far from the T. So try it. I think you'll find a lot of value in it. Also, open up your software if you have a chance. And don't do this, this is a manual exercise, but if you open up your software, you can also, while tracing, you can have Illustrator or InDesign open, and you can kind of practice your kerning and take a look at things and just really try to fine-tune things that way. And plus, it'll be a good learning experience when you have the kerning game, your sketch, and your software open where you can practice kerning on all three. Okay, those are my recommendations. I think you've done a fantastic job. So, one thing I wanted to do, I'm going to use this as a straight edge, right? So, here's actually, let's use the bottom of this as a straight edge. Okay, I can't. Okay, so let's use the top of it as a straight edge. Now, I'm just going to lay this right here. I'm going to lay it right at the top of that end, and we can see that you've got a lot of things that are protruding over the mean line. Okay, so you definitely want to draw that guide in there. Conversely, if we do the same thing down here, this time we'll use the bottom. Okay, we'll lay this at the bottom of this A right here, and you can see that there are other things that are hanging down all below that baseline. So you want to make sure those are consistent. Okay, great job. Any questions at all, please feel free to let me know. Thank you very much.